Friends, colleagues and listeners, here we are again, another weekend show. And I've got to say, we've got Stephen Dickson here looking smarter than normal. And I'm referring to his attire. What a lovely shirt and tie, son. What's that, big major occasion? Interview?
No interviews this week, but I have a birthday dinner for my darling wife tonight. So while she's off getting ready, that gives me about 3 hours and 27 minutes of record time available for our listeners.
Yeah, hopefully she won't be one after that, mate. Yeah. No, well, we'll wish Ramini a great birthday, Steve. And
I will do. Thanks very much.
What a lovely evening ahead. I can only imagine. Well, my friends,
I'm hopeful.
Yeah, well, I can imagine. Well, another week. Lovely to see you. Now you're back in Kuala Lumpur. I'm in Spain, so we've both had another.
Oh, we've switched.
Yes, we have. But it's lovely to travel again, and it's so nice to see so many people, and so many people at this time of the year. You know, wanting to get away and sample travel and see friends and family and whatever the reason. Also, COP26 sustainability. So many people talking about this subject matter and this word. Okay, now that's what I want to talk about today, Steve.
Good.
So, firstly, what did you think? What did you think of the outcome?
So I'll preface this by saying I actually had a week off last week, and it's the first week off. I'm very bad. In fact, my wife and I are both very bad at taking time off work. And I did very little in the way of engagement with anything other than my wife and my son, who have, like everybody else, they've not had a holiday in a while. So I haven't been doing as much reading up on this as I would like. However, what I have seen is, I think, from a positive perspective, Chris, there is now momentum. I think engagement creates momentum. Momentum will build, I guess, a baseline and platform for effectively the burning platform, quite literally, I guess, as well as metaphorically, for change. But it doesn't happen without the political leadership, and I'm not really sure that the spine is there with the politicians. But I don't think it begins and ends with the politicians. I think actually it begins and ends. Every single person, every single human on this planet needs to be taking the right actions and the right steps to ensure that we are that we have a planet that is habitable and sustainable for future generations. I'm not quite sure we're there yet. I know I'm not there for sure. We have a couple of gas guzzlers, nice performing cars, but they're not exactly the world's most efficient cars. They'll probably, however, be the last petrol car I ever own.
Really?
Now, well, I believe so, Chris, because not necessarily my intention. I'd switch out my car every 3 years. So I suspect that in a couple of years' time there'll be another. There'll be a real push on electric or some other, kind of fuels, I guess, but certainly non-fossil fuel. So I'm going to make the most of these cars whilst they got them, because I suspect the performance, whilst it was improved, were different. But there are other things that need to do around the home. I'm sitting here in my study with my air conditioning on. There's lots of things that everybody can do. I don't think anybody should be criticised for a lack of effort. I think we all need to be cognizant that this needs to go in concert. The politicians may well be the conductors, but the orchestra on the stage are the ones that are playing the music. And if the second trumpet or the first fiddler is not in tune, none of us are.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's the awareness level now that seems to be the winner, because everybody now is a little bit more focused. Everybody's a lot more aware. Too many people are a little bit too verbal with it, and as if they've got the sole right to be telling everybody else what to do, which I don't approve of. But and things are changing. So apart from the tears of Sharma or the wobbly chin and the end result and a little bit of a climb back on the first level, I think everything's going to be good. So obviously next year, it's in Egypt, I think, next year. So that's also good. So we'll see what's come from it. But one of the things, and it's something I've been talking to a lot of people, GSE and also handlers, about sustainability and about the pressures that they're under, and the more pressures that are coming without people fully realizing the implications. And in some cases, the exhaustive cost, Steve. So the 3 Ps, the people, planet, or people, profit, planet, too many people are demanding and saying this should happen, that should happen, which is good to have pressure, but without a sufficient amount of oversight and knowledge, it's also a little bit dangerous, because at the end of the day, if businesses aren't making money and not making profit, they're not going to have the funds to spend on developing things for the planet.
Yeah.
And if you look at the airports, it doesn't matter how much goodwill there is to convert all your GSE to electric or buy electric, etc.
Yeah.
They haven't got the capability at the airports.
Yeah. No, I totally agree, and that's why, you know, these young teenagers, you know, who, you know, sounds very credible to a particular audience, and that audience that they're playing to lap it up. But I think the sensible amongst us will recognise that this is not a sprint. This is much more of a marathon. You know, having people espouse their own personal thoughts without the benefit of the scientists or the economic support wrapped around it, I think, as you say, an unhelpful proposition. And unfortunately, she who shouts loudest is heard the most. I particularly use the word she there for obvious reason. But I don't think that Greta and her friends, you know, will have got many allies in the sense of, you know, when one, I think we're all allied with the overall cause, Chris. I should just correct myself. We're all allied with the overall cause. I think it's about how we get there. It's not the why. We all know it's the why. It's the same way. You know, and I'm not putting Greta in the same bracket as the Extinction Rebellion mob or this Insulate Britain mob.
Yeah.
Who just switch everybody off, and they do more damage to the cause than they do good. But I do think that that spouting or espousing just you know, great sound bites for cameras is not the way to bring industry with us, to find the right sort of green funding models, to find the right ways to unlock capital or to unlock sustainable aviation fuel investment. I think there are better ways to do that, and it won't be an 18-year-old that's doing that. I suspect it'll be people elsewhere in the ecosystem that need to do that.
Yeah, and yeah, no, I agree, Steve. And also, it's great to see the next couple of generations being so focused on it, and some of the promotional awareness videos are fantastic, absolutely brilliant. But extremes of anything aren't good.
No, exactly.
And you can actually see people start to turn off because the argument or the discussion or the debate starts to just blend into something that, you know, just does not make sense.
Exactly.
And, you know, some of the people, even the politicians who've come out and they make a generalized statement and they slam into an individual or they slam into a party or a part of what they're doing, and they go so over the top. Time always seems to come back and hit those people because they were so extreme in their viewpoint or in their outburst, and it's crazy. But I'll tell you what it does. I was waiting to get on the plane yesterday, and there was two lovely couples who were just in front of me, and we started talking. And I was just saying to them, you know, why they're coming down this time of the year, etc. And what they said was they normally come down 3 to 4 times between the end of September and the end of February. And so this time they decided that they'd come down for one long burst instead of having, you know, 3 flights or whatever. And the two ladies said that, you know, that was their reason for doing it that way. And the two lads were saying it was their reason just to get away for longer. And, you know, they were all doing it. And that then brought me to think, you know, if you look at our industry and all the conferences are opening up again now, and there's so many of them now. And there must start to be a little bit of pressure now when the industry is talking about collaboration and communication and cooperation and all these lovely words, that they've got to start combining these conferences, because executives and managers are surely going to be also faced with what are they doing to support the sustainability model. And if people start to see them going to 5 or 6 conferences a year instead of a combined 2 or 3 or 2, people are going to start questioning that as well, even the employees. So, you know, employees now need to look up and see that their companies are also doing things that are, you know, that are good for the people, good for society and good for this lead by example concept. So
Yeah,
that's going to be a major factor now moving forward.
I think it is, but look, like anything, Chris, I guess there's always there's those that are willing to sort of take the first mover advantage seat, and see what capital, I guess, or support they can gather from that. It's a bit like when these airlines or the European aviation emissions trading scheme was introduced. Sort of the carbon offsets and the ETS. It was all a bit of a, I have to say, a bit of a wet blanket, really. It didn't really have much of an effect. You got this little click box that was optional, then it became, let's call it unoptional. You got to untick it if you don't want to pay the carbon offset, etc. in the true Ryanair EasyJet fashion. But people never really knew where their money was going, Chris. They never really knew what carbon offset meant. So for EasyJet to offset their emissions on a given flight, and said, "Oh, I can pay £2.73 for that," but that sounds good. But what does that actually mean? What happens to that fund, and what does offsetting mean? I don't think that the messaging was wide enough. I don't think people understood it deeply enough, and I think people thought, well, this is a good thing to go along with. Let's go along with it. So, of course, a lot of airlines followed suit, and a lot of customers they thought it was the right thing to do. I think what we've got to do slightly differently is position this slightly differently this time. And if there is now a concerted effort, and it is, was it carbon neutral by 2050 or 2035? I forget which I think it's 2050.
Steve, there's so many neutral end dates.
But at least one of them. I mean, here's exactly an example. People that work in the industry that sort of go, actually, which one is it? I'm not really sure what the commitment is that we made. I think there's more work to do around that, and I think to get Joe Public on board, it's got to be really simple. Not because we're dealing with simpletons, but actually because the messaging is very complex. This is not a simple issue. This is a very complicated issue of the day that needs to be managed. It needs to be well communicated, and it needs funding ultimately, I suspect, to get to the whatever the commitments are that our political brothers and sisters have made on our behalf.
No, it's incredible. But what it means for the business now is also, more difficult decisions. But I was talking during the week to some people, and it was about, what do they do with if they've got multiple sites or good regional representation, and they've got equipment that's overused in certain stations and underused in others. Now, obviously they're looking at rotating them so they get the most out of them. That was one issue. Second issue was, what do you do with your new and your old? Do you start to refurbish? Do you start to convert? Then we were talking about the different types of diesel, and taking tax off of the levy, and then making it more easy to use the different diesel option. And then we were also talking about when airports make an arbitrary decision and says no equipment can be used if it's over a certain age. Well, like all of us, doesn't mean that just because you're at a certain age that you're absolutely knackered and you can't do anything.
I hear you absolutely. Look, I guess different sectors within the same industry will move at different pace, Chris. You look at aviation fuel, for example, that's moving at a very different pace to investment in electrical JC, which I have to say the UK is quite good at. Europe is quite good at that. Here in Asia, it is non-existent. So, different parts of the world and different sectors of the same industry will move at different speeds, which we've got to be able to account for. And this can't therefore be a universal, I talk a lot, as you know, about sort of the equilibrium in maintaining balance in life, in business, in health, and everything. A little bit of risk is helpful, but too much, you probably end up on the mortuary table. But the point is, I guess we've got to get balance. We've got to, we can't move often at the pace that some people want to, because air travel will then become prohibitively expensive. There may well be less opportunity or less network. And what does that do to the overall thing? Well, maybe someone says that's a good thing. In Europe, for example, I know that France has banned domestic flights of less than 90 minutes. So that's not difficult when France is a relatively well-connected country. I'd say the TGV is fabulous. Puts Network Rail and Great British Railways to shame. So on the continent of Europe, there's a lot being done on the surface, Chris, that will impact positively aviation. Then on the other hand, you've got the British government now reducing the domestic air passenger duty for domestic flights.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I'm not really sure about this. These crocodile tears from Ashok. What's his name? Not Ashok Kumar. What's the fella?
Sharma.
Ashok Sharma. I do know Ashok Kumar. Big shout out to Ashok Kumar, great bloke. Retired after many years in industry. I think 50 years with Malaysia Airlines service. So top fella. Anyway, Ashok Sharma, his crocodile tears. Yes, he might have got China or India to play ball on the last day, but why are we reducing air passenger and domestic travel? Yes, I accept. I work in aviation. I want aviation to succeed, but at the same time, actually, I don't fly domestically to Edinburgh, as you know, Chris. Because we've got some
up on the train, yeah.
Scotland. I go up on the train there and back, and I use the sleeper train so I can maximise time and not have to pay a hotel room. And that's because I'm a tight arse. But not tonight, though. Not tonight. Not tonight. But so there are things that we can do. So I'm not really sure that that the agenda is yet coordinated at all levels of government or industry.
Yeah, no, I agree, Steve. And like I said, as we go further and get further, people will become more aware. They'll become more sensible, hopefully, and more balanced, which is what's necessary. But if you look at now some of the decisions that are being made, and again on the buses when you're going to the stands, I've started listening and looking at what people are paying attention to and what they're saying, and it is you see so much equipment. When you go, and if you go to a remote stand, I guarantee you there'll be somebody that say, this is ridiculous. Why are we going so far? We're wasting fuel. We're affecting the economy. All these comments keep coming, and they're going to be more and more and more. And, the question then for how much influence airports can actually make on the future. So, they could put their own charter in place where they future-proof buildings, whether it's to do with the logistics, whether it's to do with solar heating, whether it's to do with IT, with digitization, with paperless, what they could start making a huge, big impact. But also pooling. So, pooling of equipment now more than ever before, surely has got to be a very positive way. And equally, pooling of people, of high capable cross-functional people. Which I personally, if I was starting my career again, and somebody said to me, right, you're doing this, or, you're working in a warehouse or you're working in admin. And then they said, right, for part of your shifts or whatever, you can learn what goes on before you, what goes on after you. And now we'll split it up so that you're not focused too much, out on ramps when you're in extreme weather conditions, but let people start to own and appreciate the relay team concept of passing the baton and how important it is to make a good handover.
Totally agree, Chris. I think that's something that a lot of us who've been involved in these discussions would agree with as well. Particularly because I think the current agenda to have cross-company training recognition and or cross qualification of staff across employers, where we know that there is now a massive challenge with recruitment of people or retention of people who moved industries, don't want to come back again. These are all things that would help now with that agenda. But overall, when you look at the approach that we're taking, does pooling of resources in general, whether it be an asset, a person, a piece of equipment, a system or whatever, are there better ways that we could use our assets as a whole that supports not only the restart and the ongoing, cost effectiveness of our industry, but the broader industrial or broader environmental agenda. Industrial agenda. That was the 50.
That's what caused all this problem.
That's what caused the issue. Oh, Freudian! I fell straight into the trap there, Chris.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree with you, Steve, and especially now on this. What can you do to get people back into our industry career? How do you make people feel more engaged? You know, how do you let them earn more money rather than just the inflationary argument? Because some of the rates now that are being offered for overtime because there's a problem, and people now pushing just for across the board pay rise. I don't think that's right. I think there needs to be a balance again, where if people work hard, they get rewarded. If people work to the minimum expectations, then that's another option as well. So that, pardon?
They get fired.
Oh, so that's an option as well. But underperformance obviously shouldn't be allowed to. It shouldn't be allowed to carry on the way they have done in past. But with all of that change, it brings me back, and I can't remember the exact time when we started talking about, you know, different types of training and why to train differently and everything. And now we finally got something up and running.
Well, yes, indeed.
I am over the moon with it, Steve, because normally you talk with people about things, and it ends up just being talking and referencing to what we said when and how and then. And but now we've actually got something up and going.
We do indeed. Yes, I think we were quite, I guess, humble in our aspirations, but real, I guess, in terms of the opportunity, Chris. And that's why we've had this under wraps for a few months as we have developed the opportunity more broadly. And yes, I must say a massive thanks to you for your encouragement, and also to Terry Ramage, Nikki Ware, and Charlie Mail, who have helped us pull this together, which is the launch of Skylight Aviation Academy. And so the five of us have founded this new business that is essentially predicated on joining some of the dots that you mentioned there, Chris. So an aviation academy, a skills academy that will help businesses with the restart, that will take away some of the pressures with some of the direct technical training requirements, but also more broadly look at how do we upskill the workforce, how do we ensure the right level of management training is given to future leaders, current leaders, future leaders, leaders beyond. Yeah. And we can't say much more right now, but there's a couple of launch customers very much in the stalls, just waiting for they're under sort of starters orders, waiting for the starter to release the horses from the box. But we'll do that as soon as possible. But no, massive thanks to you and the rest of the guys for the support in getting this off the ground.
Yeah, no, but yeah, no, and yourself as well, Steve, because it's been lovely to see it, you know, just to grow from those first seeds of you know, opportunity and responsibility, and also speaking and not doing something, and then, you know, putting that into practice. So I think it's lovely. So, you know, as the shoots grow and we wait for the spring or summer of our success, I think it's going to be a great. I think it's going to be a great platform.
We'll need more than one swallow, though, Chris.
Yes, we will indeed. But it's the right, you know, I think anyhow, it's the right thing to do, and it's good to be doing things differently, and it's good to be doing things that, you know, focus on the practical side and making it matter. So yeah, really excited, really good. Now, little bit of a short one today, because I know you're heading off for your celebrations.
I am, and also I'm very conscious that we don't have any technical support with us today. Our partner in crime, for the first time ever, is missing. Mr. Salam Raja is missing for good reason, I must add. He's not MIA. I think we've only had one MIA in the 18 months that we've been doing this, Chris, and that was yours truly. So moving swiftly on, but no, so we will have to work out how to download this and manage the file thereafter. So but.
No, exactly. So just to finish, you know, there's still lots of positives around. So it was really nice to see Emirates, you know, with their figures as well, what they showed up as well, and the fact that Dnata, you know, rehiring, you know, a large proportion. I think, you know, figures were saying up to half of the personnel that were laid off previously, which is you know, which is good. Lovely to see that, and people being affected in a positive fashion and welcome back into the industry, which is brilliant.
Yeah.
And then you've got QR announcing their IATA CO2 Connect, or Connect, very cleverly worded. That's good. And then a shout out for Celebi for getting their CEIV Pharma globally. So everybody's pushing things forward, and quite rightly so. So Steve,
I saw
let
that.
you get on.
It is a question for you because it's your area of the business. But how does that? The global. I thought the CEIV was an individual site to get approval. Is it? Is it now a global for one single ground handler?
Stevie, it's like most accreditation and certification programs. If you've got multiple sites and you comply to do certain things in the same way at all sites, they can't wait until they've audited or validate every single site. So, provided there's some of the larger stations and then some, and then a select random, which is the way it should be done. Then if they find the consistencies there, and obviously the management structure, all of your SOPs, your manuals, etc., that would all meet the requirements. And then, it's the right way to do it, because otherwise you'd be waiting forever to have a global certification. But I think the most important thing is that organizations commit globally. And if they do that and they genuinely put, whether irrespective of the accreditation or certification, if they genuinely have that as part of their structure and their culture, the most important group see it, which is the employees.
Yes.
However, there are too many companies who are still preaching and saying what they've done and zero findings and all manner of administrative compliance, but not practical. That's what really frustrates living daylights out of me.
Yeah, I hear you.
So, yeah.
Good.
So
Thanks for that. Every day's a school day at Skylight Aviation Academy, Chris.
there you go, my friends. Every day's a school day. You get up and you learn and you go to bed and you're happy.
Exactly.
Right, sir. Take care of yourself. Happy birthday to Ramani. And see you next week and speak to you soon.
Cheers,
all the
Chris.
best.
See you later.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.